space, the final frontier, where some voyages are really good and some are not. Okay, so this is another Patreon commissioned review, and this is another instance where I've been commissioned to review a pair of episodes from Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, the thing that's kind of funny about this is that normally when I've been commissioned to do a pair of episodes, the person who tends to commission me for this sort of stuff, generally, they don't tell me if there's a connection, but generally I see it between the episodes. Similar themes, certain thematic rhymings, or even picking up on plot threads in the second one from the first one, even if they aren't back-to-back episodes. This case, I think it was just two random episodes because there isn't really too much of a connection between them. Well, I suppose at a stretch, there's character development and exploration of Data in both cases. But in the first instance, he's not exceptionally at the forefront, whereas in the second one he is. But I guess there was a little bit of that. That's the best I've got. So, first one that I got commissioned for was Lonely Among Us from season 1. And when I saw it was season 1, I immediately went, oh dear. Oh dear. Season 1 of Star Trek The Next Generation, look, thankfully it was good enough to get more seasons and get better, but especially going back to it now, oh, it's rough. It's, and like on so many levels, like across the board, it's rough. The dialogue is often stilted. The concepts are either half-baked or underexplored, or sometimes two ideas are crammed in a space where it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be. Things get rushed. Things drag. It's, oh boy. I'm not going to say this is like the worst episode out there, but it ain't good. So, this is one where there's two plots going on. And when I say two plots, I mean like two plots. They do not meaningfully intersect at any point. There is a B plot completely disconnected from the A plot. And like, that's not an impossible thing to make work. But when one of those things feels so much more pressing than the other, and particularly with some of the fine details of the B plot, which I'll be getting into, like, this was a bad fit. And it's funny because before the episode started going off the rails, I did remember thinking, I kind of like how it's not uncommon on TNG for the crew to be on a mission that, like, they're trying to do this thing, but then something happens and they have to still address the thing they were initially doing, but now they also have to deal with this. But that isn't really what's going on here because, as I said, the two stories don't meaningfully intersect. They don't even really interrupt each other in any significant way. But anyways, they are taking some ambassadors from these two warring species to basically a negotiating location so that they can try and hammer stuff out and see if either of them are a good match to join the Federation. In an ideal world, they both will be in. Their differences will be put aside, but who knows? It's not very promising. Now, here's the first thing. Not all of the aliens in Star Trek TNG, even in season 1, are terrible. These ones kind of are, though. A lot of it has to do with like just how bad the mouth movement on these things is. You can tell how excessively rigid and restrictive the mouth is. There's two species. One is kind of reptilian. Their mouths barely move at all. And the other ones, I don't know. They're like canine apes kind of thing. But like there's more mouth movement, but it's basically just it's like a ventriloquist dummy. It's real bad. It looks real bad. But anyways, there is a little grouping of ambassadors from each of these species who hate each other. And All right, set that entire B plot aside. I'm going to circle back to it. The main plot is that the Enterprise kind of grazes this cloud thing, and an energy being comes on board the ship. So in this case, it ends up jumping from person to person a few times. It starts in Worf, it goes to Dr. Crusher, it then goes into the ship's computer. It ends up killing an engineer, allegedly accidentally. Guy named Singh, who I was actually kind of liking, and I actually thought it was interesting having somebody with that distinct an accent that isn't like, an English or an American accent. And then of course he died. Go figure. And eventually it gets into Picard, and there's this whole thing where, like, the implication is that because this thing and Picard both kind of have this life ambition of journey and exploration, that they kind of want to stay together and, like, become a joined energy being of both Picard and this thing. Okay. God. All right. So I'm just going to bullet point idiocy. All right. And it is idiocy of characters and idiocy of writing. Idiocy of character. You have Beverly, who suddenly, after the thing jumps from her into the ship's computer, finds herself on the bridge at a console in the middle of doing something, and she doesn't know what or why. And when asked, is everything all right? Her answer is, fine. I'm fine. Why would you say that you're fine? You have a massive blank spot in your memory. You are on the bridge at a console for no reason. You don't say no. You don't say everything's fine. Something is clearly wrong. Like, this is just stupid, especially for the doctor. For the doctor to ignore something like that, that's really dumb. That's really, really dumb. So there's that. As a starter, Wesley's pretty annoying in this too. I'm gonna blame the dialogue. It's really stilted dialogue, and I feel bad for him. I don't think I could have made that dialogue work either. But this is definitely a case where you get where the annoying Wesley image came from, because it didn't come from nowhere. All respect to Will Wheaton. But so there's stuff like that, and then, like, the whole thing with the. All right, first of all, the way that people act when possessed by this thing is super inconsistent. We don't see a lot from Worf. He's actually lashing out at everything. Beverly is just kind of dead-eyed, just wandering around kind of mechanically. And then when it's in Picard, like, it almost gets smug. It's like, oh, yes, I'm in control now. And, like, I'm not going to say there's no way to make that makes sense. Like, it starts out, maybe it didn't even mean to possess Worf. It's scared, and then it's just trying to get its bearings when it's in Beverly, and then it feels at home when it's in Picard, I guess. But it doesn't feel like a progression of a character. It feels like there's no consistency to how this thing behaves or what kind of personality it has. And the entire concept of what goes on with Picard just, it makes my head hurt. So the very idea is pretty off-putting, especially given that we've seen repeatedly when this thing leaves people, they, like, don't remember at all, which would imply, even though it is saying, like, I'm one with Picard now, I was like, are you though? Because we've never seen evidence that that's really the case, because people don't remember at all. But the solution is actually, like, wait a minute, what? So I think, if I understand, actually, I don't understand. I don't know what happened. One of two things happened, but neither quite matches up. So once Picard is, like, joined with this energy being thing, and they get on the transport and beam out into the cloud, Picard got uploaded to the cloud. Once that happens, like, they don't know how to get him back. They don't even know if they can get him back, because it's, like, said flat out he doesn't have a body anymore. So they make him a new body by recreating his pattern from the transporter's memory, which, like, that part I buy, especially given some other shenanigans that have been done with transporters over the years. Like, okay, but, like, the thing is, it seems to, at first, initially imply that they've got Picard's essence, mind, soul, whatever, like, as data somewhere, and they're not like as data, but as data somewhere in the system, and they upload it to this reformed body. Except that doesn't make sense, because once they do that, the last thing he remembers is getting on the transport pad, meaning that what it really seems to be implying is that they didn't actually save Picard. They just created a new one, and that Picard's actual essence is actually still trapped out there in the freaking cloud. Like, neither one makes sense. Both are stupid. It's really rushed, which is part of why I don't understand it. It's a technobabble nightmare. And then, I'm spending more time on this than I wanted to. But then, let's deal with the B-plot real quick. So, first of all, terrible alien costumes. Doesn't look good. It's jutting into the story in weird ways. And like I said, the two stories never meaningfully intersect. They don't even conflict with each other. It truly is just there to eat up time, so far as I can tell. And given how badly rushed the ending was, like, they kind of needed the time that was devoted to this stupid B-plot. But they've got this whole thing, and the dog apes, they have this whole thing where, like, they brought their food because they eat real meat as opposed to the synthetic meat that is made on board the Enterprise. And, like, in and of itself as a plot point, I thought that was interesting to bring up. But at the very end, after Picard is back, it's basically stated that one of the dog apes have killed and are in the process of eating one of the snake people. And the tone of the scene and the music makes it seem like that's supposed to be funny, or like as sort of a, here we go again kind of thing. And like the attitude from the officers is just like, now deal with this. Somebody's dead. Somebody died on your ship. What is this tone? And I suppose the last thing I should mention before moving on, I mentioned there's some kind of development for Data. Now, what there is for that is when they are initially just trying to figure out what's going on, and it's mysterious, Picard, I think this might even be the first time, sort of mentions his love of detective stories and specifically cites Sherlock Holmes, which Data then goes and reads and starts applying the Sherlock Holmes style deduction method on trying to figure out what is going on, complete with pipe. So this is kind of the initiation of the whole love of Sherlock Holmes for Data, which I didn't know there was a known origin point, because like I've seen a lot of TNG, but a lot of it I either don't remember or never watched before. So it's kind of cool, like seeing the origin point of him getting into that, and it was kind of a casual comment from the captain. I like that. That was a neat touch, and this sort of like low-level excitement from Data, like, ooh, here's something I can get into. I'm like, nice. That was kind of cool to see. It's a bad episode, though. The other one I was commissioned to watch was The Most Toys. Now, this one, very Data-centric. And I like a good Data episode. I like Data. So, the thing here is that there's this... He's basically a collector who has arranged this entire thing to get the Enterprise over to where he is, so that he could fake Data's death. What he did was he blew up Data's return transporter pod, or whatever the heck they call it. Like, I've been watching Farscape too much, so like I'm getting the terms all mixed up. But he's trying to get back to the ship, and his vehicle blows up. Now that's staged, and Data wasn't on it, so that this guy could add Data to his collection. There's a lot of good stuff here. First of all, there's actually sort of the scene of trying to deal with the fact that Data's gone, between Geordi and Wesley going to Data's quarters and going through his stuff, and that was a nice scene, and it was well balanced because it was sad enough that it was believable. You did feel like there was some loss, but it wasn't so maudlin that it would be undercut by the fact that the audience knows Data's still alive. Because if they'd overdone it, like, audience would be going, yeah, but we know he's alive. Do we have to go to this degree? Even if it would have made sense for the characters. But instead, they found the sweet spot of, like, you can tell they're very sad and are feeling the loss, but we're not going to drag the entire scene down with it. That was good. That was good stuff. Both Wesley and Geordi in that. But honestly, the highlight here is Data himself and this collector, because he is so entertainingly hateable. He is, you know what he is? He's a spoiled brat. He always gets his way, and when he thinks he's not going to, or if something is preventing him from getting his way, he just turns into this snotty little twerp. It's the kind of character you want to see get punched in the face. And you're on the edge of your seat going, when's somebody going to punch him in the face? And it's real good. He, especially in contrast to Data and the way that Data resists him, just simply refusing to follow commands, while at the same time Data, what he is prepared or possibly even able to do to try and escape is limited, because he's not going to kill this guy. He can't attack him for strictly logistical reasons that get covered, technobabble, force field basically, but even beyond that, like, he doesn't want to bring harm to this guy. He just doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be on display as a curiosity. So he just finds these little ways to rebel. Initially refusing to put on the clothes that this guy wants him to wear. And then when this guy brings a friend of his in to show off his latest item, Data doesn't respond. He just stands there. It's like he's a mannequin. And this very clear act of protest, nonviolent protest, it's good and it's interesting. And the episode does something pretty daring at the end. Now, this is a season 3 episode I didn't mention earlier. Now, at the very end, after Data he almost managed to escape with the help of one of the other people that works for this guy, but they get caught and that guy kills her, the woman who was helping Data. Data picks up a weapon and points it at him. And the show leaves it kind of ambiguous as to whether or not Data would have shot him. Because this guy is very insistent you're not going to, but you can't help but wonder. Now, doing their own thing in parallel to all this going on, the crew of the Enterprise has realized what's gone on, and they actually beam Data out of there while he's got the weapon trained on this collector. And while he's in transport, Chief O'Brien mentions that he's got a weapon, it's discharging. I'll deactivate it, and they're able to do that in transport. And when asked about it by Riker, when Riker says, the chief said it was discharging, and Data says something must have happened during the transport, which is possible, which is feasible, but maybe he also pulled the trigger. Maybe he made the decision that ending that man's life, not as revenge, but to prevent him from killing anyone else, which he made very clear he was more than willing to do, maybe Data would have decided it was worth it. Especially when he didn't know if anyone was going to come and resolve the situation otherwise. It seemed like he was the only one with any power to rectify the situation. And that was starting to look like his only option, which are circumstances that even with a character like Data, you could buy that at least there was something questioning. There was the slightest possibility. And it's really well played and just enjoyable. It's just an enjoyable episode, and it's well paced. It's well acted. This is a highlight. I like this one a lot. I'm going to want to watch this one again. I hadn't seen it before. Or at least, I might have. like little bits of it rang a bell. Something about the guy when he was showing Data the baseball card and like opens the case. He's like, that smell? Bubble gum. I preserve the scent. I'm like, something about that rang a bell. So maybe I have seen parts of this before, but I didn't remember it well. This one's good. It did a good job of cleansing my palate of that first one. These two particular episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Have you seen either one of those? Do you remember them? What are your thoughts on how I've described them? Whatever thoughts you have, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe, Patreon. That's how I was commissioned to review these, and it's how you too can commission me to review stuff if you are so inclined. But, don't worry too much about it. Like, share, subscribe, help me out as well. There's links down in the description for, all the other stuff that I do, but don't worry about it. Take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. Thanks for sticking around into the credits. None of this would have been possible without my Patreon supporters in particular. I want to thank Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Bookworm. Thanks for keeping this going. And to everybody,